hostile environment harassment and where derogatory humor was an element of the harassment. In these cases, the work environment often involved racist slurs as well. Examples like these raise a difficult question for scholars. Should the slurs be given verbatim in quotations, or should the slurs be specified by giving the first letter only, allowing the audience to fill in for themselves? These words convey contempt and hatred. They are used to dehumanize people, and they form part of a deeply harmful network of oppression that has, at times, included enslavement, and that is still a systematic wrong that shapes the society in which I live. As I have said, some people believe that there are slurs that are so offensive that they ought not appear even in quotations. They are not part of the news that is fit to print. On the other hand, omitting slurs from court transcripts screens out an element of the racism that formed the experience of the plaintiffs. And if we wish to understand and combat racism, it might be better to report the horrible truth. The legal opinions that are relevant to my argument fall on both sides of this question, with some courts eliding slurs and others typing them out in full. I have chosen to elide racial slurs, even if they were written in full in primary sources. Where I am discussing the slur and its effects, but not quoting from another source, I have chosen to describe the word rather than to write it out. Some legal opinions elide both expletives and slurs, and these I quote verbatim. However, where I am discussing an expletive and not quoting from another source, I write it out in full. Expletives like fuck and damn have shock value, but treating them in the same way as slurs undermines an important distinction between expletives and slurs, namely that expletives do not encode contempt and hatred for other human beings. Professional comedy. This book is focused on humor in conversation with other people, not on professional comedy of the sort to be found in comedy clubs and on television. I mention professional comedians and their opinions about how humor works, but the arguments I give about humor in conversation do not directly apply to professional comedy. Comedy, like other professions, has its own purposes and norms. For example, professional comedians are performers, and the expectations of the audience differ from the expectations when two people are conversing. Often in academic books, authors exclude something from the scope of their project, saying that they will tackle it on another occasion. But, truth be told, I do not know enough about professional comedy to say anything worthwhile about it, and I do not enjoy professional comedy enough to learn what I would need to know to give an opinion of any value. In this case, I leave it to someone else to tackle on another occasion. The terms speaker and hearer. Many deaf and hard-of-hearing people conduct conversations without auditory information, using languages like American Sign Language or Brazilian Sign Language. These are rich, complete natural languages with grammars and vocabularies that are distinct from each other and from the oral languages that are used in the same geographical areas. With sign languages, the equivalent of hearing someone is seeing them talk, that is, seeing them communicate with the movements of their hands, bodies, and faces. While sign languages and oral languages differ in the physical skills and sensory capacities that they employ, there is no reason to suppose that they differ in other ways. For example, with regard to how meaning can be conveyed literally or non-literally. In English, the term hearing usually excludes people who do not use auditory processes for communication. The deaf community in the United States uses the American Sign Language term hearing to refer to people who use auditory capacities for linguistic communication. And American Sign Language has different signs for listening with the ears and listening with the eyes. However, I will follow the conventions of my field, where the terms hearers, listeners, and audiences apply to people who are lip-reading or attending to sign language, as well as those using auditory processes. Similarly, I use speaker to include people who are using sign language. I recognize that using speaker and hearer